Welcome to Bear Insight. I am your host, Cole Young. If you like what you see today, make sure you like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. We got over 25 subscriptions, and I just want to say thank you. We're growing. I'm excited to bring out more content. And let's start off with some more content with this is a really interesting one. I mean, we don't really usually talk about this in football, but we are going to talk about it today as special teams. I got here a very prolific lawn snapper who's had a very interesting journey, was a part of the 2022-2023 Oregon Ducks where they won the Holiday Bowl, and has been there, and he's now currently at Washington State. Let's give it up for lawn snapper Colson Brunner.
Thank you. Thank you, Colin. I appreciate that.
Yes. How are you doing so far?
I'm doing good, man. I'm doing good. Just up here in Pullman, living on the Palouse. Great spot. Just enjoying it. It's pretty interesting during the summers because it's a ghost town around here. Like the only people here are the locals and the football team. So it's a little different, but it's pretty cool. And I can't really complain. It's great.
I gotcha. But yeah, and I mean, we've talked about this before. I kind of know your story, but the audience doesn't really know your story. So tell them, how did you get to Washington State? And I think this is a very interesting journey. So explain.
Yeah, so I graduated high school in 2021, so kind of the back end of all the COVID stuff, which is obviously a very interesting time for everybody and very interesting for, like football players, recruits, just because so much was affected by COVID and it really just kind of like it was completely new. Nobody had ever experienced something like that before. And so out of high school, I started at Central Washington University, a Division II in Ellensburg, Washington, which is a fun fact. It's an hour south of where I grew up. And to be real with you, I obviously knew of Central, knew of the football team in high school, but didn't really didn't, and I've never even seen a game before I even played for them. So I started at Central, had 2 great years at Central. It was a phenomenal time, and I still have great relationships with everybody there, and really enjoyed my time in Ellensburg. I had 2 good seasons, back to back first team all conference like recognitions, and then my sophomore year, there's like only like one. I guess it's like I don't know if you call it a company or it's just a person out there who ranks all American long snappers at the D2 level. And after my sophomore year, I got ranked like first team All American, which was pretty sweet. It's cool to get recognized for some accolades. And after that, my sophomore season, um, decided that it was best for me to enter the portal because just like everybody else, there's the dream to go play D1, and that was my time to go, strive for that dream. So I entered the portal, and just a couple of weeks, month or so later, I ended up committing and going to the University of Oregon, which is a completely different college experience as a football player than it was at Central Washington. Go from a D2 to probably one of the more prolific Division 1s on the West Coast, if not in the nation. So little eye-opening experience, but I was really happy about my time at Oregon too. It was a really good experience, and that's all that I could have ever really wished for. It was fun while it lasted. It just wasn't for me for a couple of reasons, but nothing too serious. And after this last season at Oregon, it was best for me to transfer again, 2-time transfer. Um, and I was very fortunate enough to work things out with Washington State. And I mean, it was a seamless process. Just to be honest with you, it was enter the portal, and within a couple of days, I was in Pullman taking a visit, and I knew this is where I wanted to be when I kind of knew that I was gonna leave Oregon. I knew that Wazoo was where I wanted to be, and it just worked out really well for me. So I got to Pullman here in January. I was here all of the winter workouts, all spring ball, and now we're here. So it's a little interesting going from a D2 to then Oregon to Washington State. It's not very conventional to say the least, but no, I'm really happy with where I'm at, and Wazoo's a great spot.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. One little quick omission. I actually screwed up. I said Holiday Bowl, Fiesta Bowl. He was
Yeah.
part of the Fiesta Bowl championship.
Yeah.
My bad. Yeah, so let's talk about being a lawn snapper.
Mhm.
Was it your first intentions to be a lawn snapper going into high school, or did that just kind of came up out of the nowhere and you kind of just transitioned during college?
Yeah, so I kind of started taking snapping seriously my sophomore year of high school. And it was kind of at that point when I realized I wasn't going to be like a 6'4", 6'5" guy. I wasn't gonna be able to be a big guy in the trenches because I played O-line, D-line all throughout high school. I even had some like small school offers to go play that at the D3 or NAIA level. But once I realized I wasn't going to be, big enough to play at the level I wanted to play at, I was like, shoot, I gotta figure something else out if I want to go play college ball. So started taking this whole long snapping thing a little bit seriously and started going to camps and got ranked nationally and just I don't know. It's a long process once you get into long snapping, because it's such a minute position that nobody really notices you until you mess up. And one of the things that long snappers are told is that you want to go unnoticed. So to not be in the spotlight, I guess, and nobody really knows your name, which is has its perks and has its cons too. But um, I mean, I grew up long snapping a little bit here and there. Like I did it in middle school, did it early on in high school, and then just kept progressing, kept getting better, and it's just what worked out for me to get into college and continue my athletic career was to by being a long snapper, and it's
Mm,
worked out pretty well for me. So
yeah. Was your training different compared to everyone else's per se?
um for the most part, no. Like we would still do all the stuff with the team, like we still do all the workouts with all the team, and you do kind of your own thing on the side. So, I mean, during practices, we might have only 2 to 4 periods during practice where we're actually snapping or actually in a drill. So then off of that, you're just working on your own with the other specs and you're just kind of perfecting your craft with all those guys. And there it's a little interesting because some guys will tell you like, oh, I wish I had your practice schedule. Like you guys have it easy. And yes, we do have it easy, but I mean, we get our own work in all the time. So for the most part, we do the same thing as everybody else. But when it comes down to it, we have to do our things on the side because we're not the same as linebackers or running backs or pretty much any skill position, big guys, whatever. So um, you kind of just got to get your work in whenever you can. But for the most part, yeah, you're part of the team. You do everything else. So
Okay. Okay, yeah, no, it's just interesting because I mean, you guys do your own thing, and I see if you watch a practice per se, it's more everyone's kind of doing everything together, but there's the lawn snappers and the kickers. So that's
mhm,
why I'm like, you
yeah,
got to be critique with that. With
yeah.
going through lawn snapping itself, what do you think are some of the most like pivotal points to be a good lawn snapper, technique wise, on how to spiral the perfect snap to the punter or to the kicker or the lawn snap or the holder?
Yeah. The biggest thing, it's not, I mean, it really isn't like how you snap the ball, it's how well you can do it, how consistent you can be, because consistency is like your biggest thing. If you can snap the same ball over and over and over, you're going to be in a pretty good spot so to set yourself up for success. And I don't believe there's a cookie cutter way to be a long snapper.
Okay.
So kind of something that I've done is that I've kind of taken bits and pieces of different techniques that I've been taught by coaches and just found out what's best for me because I'm not the same snapper as this guy or like what I do may work for me but it won't work for for like another long snapper. So I
Okay.
think there's definitely some like main things that you have to do and I mean, if you can get those down, I mean, you can kind of find like little things here and there that, oh, this works better for me. Oh, this doesn't work better for me. So you just gotta grind through it. And there's a lot of times where you're warming up and you're like, shoot, my spiral's not spiraling. Like, why? What's going on? And so then you just move your hand, you move your left hand a little bit over on the ball, or maybe move your thumb a little bit, or you think about, okay, I want to think about my follow through more on this snap. And if that works, then just ride with it and just kind of just progressing through these little, faulties and errors and sort of things and kind of just dialing in what works for you. And obviously like you want to snap the best ball. And so if you can snap a good ball by doing this, then do it. So that's kind of what I think. But I mean, there's so many things that go into the technique. I mean, it's hand placement on the ball. It's where you have the ball like set on the ground pre-snap. Is it kind of like laying sideways or laying like flat? Is it like this? Is it like this? I mean, it's all over the place, and you just gotta find what works for you. So that's kind of what I believe, like technique wise.
You mentioned coaches. Does that also count with players too? Like, do you look at certain professionals or do you look at other players or former players and say, like, oh, I like that. I want to use that?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I have countless videos of just like screen recordings of stuff I've seen on Twitter. I'm like, wow, that guy snaps a hell of a ball. Like, I want to do what he does. And so, I mean, there's a couple of guys that I look up to per se, and probably one of my favorites is Matt Overton. He was a
Okay.
long time NFL vet. He played at Western Washington, was a D2 up in Bellingham. They're not a program anymore. They got rid of
Yeah.
football a few years back, but he was a guy I got in touch with my freshman year at Central, and I've kind of taken what he does because we have similar builds. 6 foot, 6'1", 230, 240, and seeing him snap, I've taken some things from him, and the way I snap the ball now, at least with my hands, specifically with my hands on the ball, very similar to him. And so that's kind of some things I've taken away. And then another guy is Luke Rhodes. He's the snapper for the Colts. Absolute animal. I mean, this guy has a physique of like a Greek god. He is crazy built, snaps one heck of a ball. He can block really well. He can cover. And so one of my coaches, Kyle Stelter from Special Teams U, he kind of professes like Luke Rhodes as like one of his like top guys. He has a bunch of other guys in the league, but when you're going through like critiquing film with him, if you're working with him, you'll watch a lot of Luke Rhodes stuff. And I mean, you just kind of take bits and pieces and kind of touching back on what I said earlier. You just got to find what works for you. And if it works, great. If this doesn't work, then, just stick with what works for you. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, no. Speaking of coaches, you were talking about that. Let's kind of dive a little bit back into coaching. And so, with your experience as a collegiate player so far, who has helped you, whether it's in high school up to now, has helped you be a mentor for you and to help you build of who you are today?
Yeah, I mean, it starts with family and like kind of like my support staff back at home. My mom, my sister are people I talk to literally every single day, and although they might not be helping with like techniques on the field per se, I mean, they're always there if I need to talk to somebody, and if I need to complain about, oh, my spiral wasn't spiraling today, like, okay, well, I can talk to my mom. She'd be like, oh, like, just go back to what you've done, just like you've done this a million times, just do what you do, don't think about it. So starts with family. And then I've had a couple of coaches in my time. So my high school coach, Brian Brunner, my head coach from Kashmir, he long snapped a little bit, so he's helping me with there, but he was kind of more of just like giving me like the availability to go and snap and work whenever I need to. And so I'm really grateful for him. And kind of more like long snapping specific coaches. I worked with Chris Rubio all throughout high school. Great guy. And if you're a young snapper and you're just getting started, I mean, I would firmly like you go to Rubio. Rubio gets you right. He'll teach you how to snap a ball, and he's like the building block. Like it's what you start off with. And so Rubio is kind of like the guy that got me going. And then I kind of transitioned to Kyle Stelter, like I mentioned before, from Special Teams U. He kind of works more of like a pro style type of snap, and he's a pretty hardcore coach, and he's going to hold you up to a standard, and if you can meet that standard, you're going to be great. Like you're going to be a great snapper. And so kind of all those guys have really helped me get to where I am, like technique wise and playing wise, and I'm real happy to have worked with those guys in the past, and just real great people that can help you. So yeah.
Okay, yeah. So with snapping, I know you're in the Palouse. If anyone has not been in the Palouse, it can get very, very ugly in the winter and
Yep.
it can get very
Yep.
snow. I know snow that you can play if they can play in a factor into a football game, but
Yeah.
talking about other elements like rain, snow, sleet, hail, does that affect your lawn snapping? Does that affect it at all?
Absolutely. And I mean, snapping in the snow really isn't that bad.
Really?
And which is kind of interesting because you would think like, oh, snow, like wet, cold. But like I think the hardest thing to snap in is if it's rainy and windy. Because I mean the wind, I mean, you don't think about it, but if you have like a 15-mile-an-hour crosswind, I mean your snap isn't gonna go straight back to where you want it. It's gonna move with the wind. It's like if you're playing golf and you hit a shot into the wind. I mean, you kind of just like hope for the best. You hit the ball, wind's gonna take it, you just try to get a good result. So I mean, about Oregon, it rains every single day pretty much. There was
Yeah.
like never not a day you come out for a 9 a.m. practice and the field wasn't wet or the balls weren't wet. Like but you kind of just got to figure out how to get through it. And, just keeping your hands dry, keeping the balls dry as best as you can is kind of what's going to, lead you to snap the best ball in the elements. But Now, weather definitely plays a factor, and you just got to figure out like how can I get through it because you're gonna play football games and you're gonna play in really bad weather sometimes. So you just gotta get through it and just snap your ball. So
Do you think your time at Oregon with the rain every single day, did that help you like prepare for that?
yeah, no, absolutely. And even when days it wasn't raining, like when we would go in on Thursdays for like our indoor practices during the season, that would be like our wet ball day. And Coach Lorig at Oregon, he was pretty serious about our wet ball days. And so we would have, equipment guys or our student assistant, like special teams coaches, spray like Gatorade bottles on your hands and on the ball. So like, I mean, you can try to dry your hands, but pre-snap, your hands are gonna be soaking wet. And I told my the student assistant at Oregon, his name's Lance, great guy. I told him I was like, man, I was like, I am real glad that we did wet ball like on those days because it got me so prepared to snap in the rain or the snow here in Pullman. And it's you don't think about it too much like while you're doing it, but like once you're done, you can look back and you're like, wow, like snapping when my hands are completely soaked and just trying to get through it has really prepared me well for what I'm gonna face later on when it comes to weather conditions. So yeah, it's you kind of just gotta like I keep saying like you gotta figure out what works. And so for me, like when I snap a ball in the rain, I just don't move my hands. Once my hands are on the ball, I don't move my hands because if I move, then they get a little wet on those dry spots that I just made with my hands. And so I mean, you just got to be prepared. You got to be ready. And, I'm real happy that, or real grateful, I guess you could say that, I became prepared with that just because of snapping in the rain all the time at Oregon. So,
Yeah, no, that's great information. Let's transition. Speaking of one of Oregon's former conference buddies, who are now currently at Washington State. With all this realignment happening with Oregon, Washington, Arizona, basically almost everyone except you and Oregon State
yeah.
moving on, it's now become the Pac-2. And now, if people haven't heard, the Pac-2 has made somewhat of an alliance with the Mountain West. And I wanted to kind of give you some insight of just gonna ask you, like, what are some teams that you're excited about? Because this is a brand new canvas. I mean, yes, you're gonna be obviously playing Washington and full of other teams, but I just want to feel like what are some teams that you're excited to play for? I mean, play
Yeah.
against.
I think I'm probably most excited for Boise State. Just because we're playing at Boise this year. And Boise State has such a cool environment. I mean, like you think of Boise State, you think of the blue turf. And they have a great environment down there, and it gets pretty rowdy because Idaho doesn't have a professional sports team. They have college teams, and basically the professional sports team in Idaho is Boise State, and so they have a really good fan base. Get pretty rowdy down there, and Boise State will be a fun one. And I think going down south and playing like the California teams, like Fresno State, would be fun. Wyoming. Wyoming's going to be interesting. We get Wyoming last week of the regular season in Pullman, and it's going to be cold. It's going to be really really weird weather conditions in Pullman in November, but Wyoming's used to that. Like they're used to playing at elevation. They're used to playing in the cold. So if we played a team like I don't know, like a San Jose State the last week, they might not be prepared for the wind or for the weather, for the rain or whatever it could be, or even snow. But I mean, there's probably the couple of teams that I'm more excited to play. And the Mountain West, it's still a great conference, and there's
Mhm.
some really good ball to be played against those schools. So I mean, it's exciting to play against these places because you're typically at Washington State or Oregon State. You're not playing against Mountain West teams like too often, but it's still a good brand of football, and it's going to be interesting to see how we play this year. But I'm pretty excited to see how we do, and I feel like we'll be doing all right. So yeah,
Yeah. How's your teammates and how you feel about just what's been going on? Just on a side note,
yeah.
just
I mean, it's kind of just the unknown. Like you don't really know what's going to happen, and I mean, we don't really have a say in what's going on. I mean, you can scroll on Twitter and see tons and tons of posts about conference realignment and what's the Pac-2 going to do? Like, where's Washington State, Oregon State going to go? Are they going to rebuild the Pac, or are they going to go to the ACC, or are they going to go to the Big 12? Like, nobody knows. So you just don't listen to the outside noise, and
mm,
it's really just it's everybody like outside of us. They don't matter. Like he doesn't care. We're still going to go out there on Saturdays. We're going to still play like our Wazoo brand of football. And so it's just, not listening to the outside noise because at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter. Like put the ball down. Let's play some freaking football. So
Mm,
I mean that's kind of like our whole mantra when it comes to that is like it
mhm.
doesn't matter. Let's play. So
Yeah, no, that's a great way to take it. I mean, back in Oregon, I mean, you've probably heard it. It's like it's all that outside noise and just talking about the rumors of USC, UCLA. When those times happen, it's like really you gotta just push that to the side and be like, look, it's time to play ball. Like this is no time just to speculate on what ifs now. This is time to play ball, whether it's a D3 or we're playing against Alabama. It's got to be the outside noise. So I fully agree with that.
yeah.
So last but not least, your time has been interesting, to say none of the least, and it's been a great story. But I know there are other people like us that want to exceed to Division One or higher if need be. And
Mhm.
so, what do you think is the biggest advice for anyone that's going to get into lawn snapping if they want to, or it's I'm playing for?
Yeah, I think like the biggest thing that a long snapper needs to have if they're gonna take up long snapping, they're gonna take it serious, you just gotta be confident. And I kind of say it a lot that my like play style, I mean, I might come off as cocky, but it's purely just confidence because if you don't believe in yourself, then nobody else will. And so you just gotta be like, you gotta know, like, okay, I'm gonna go out there, I'm gonna snap the ball, I'm gonna do my job, and then I'm gonna come off the field. Like it's not, I mean, you just gotta have that belief in yourself that no matter what's going on, what's happening, like you go out there, you do your job, and that's really what it all comes down to. It's just having that self confidence that you're gonna get the job done, you're gonna do it to your highest standard, and so that's probably my biggest thing. And then just to stay out of your head too. Like once you lose yourself up here, it's gonna reflect on the field, and I've had my struggles with that when it comes to, like not really staying focused, but self doubt and if you can kind of just stray away from those things and not focus too much and not to be too, I guess you could say like too harsh on yourself, then you're gonna do just fine. And you've snapped the ball thousands of times. You've done this so many times. Just go out there and do what you do.
Great way to put it there. Is there anything else that you want to say, or
I don't know, man. I don't got much else. I just really excited for the year and I watch out for the Cougs. That's all I'm gonna say.
yes,
Well, we're
yes.
doing something here in the Palouse.
Yes, no, that's awesome. It's an exciting time in Wazoo for sure. I've always liked the program. I've always have. I mean, it's a cool area. My sister went there.
Mm.
Great area. I'll always be rooting for you, Colson. I'll be rooting this year for Washington
Yeah.
State. Yeah, so there you have it for today's show. If you like what you saw today, make sure you like, subscribe, and hit that notification. Ladies and gentlemen, once again, Colson Brunner. Everyone, have a good day.
Thank you.